You're listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. This is the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who understand that exponential business growth isn't achieved through traditional business tactics alone, but through personal development, the ultimate leverage point to scale businesses beyond conventional limits. Hosted by Erika Ferenczi, featuring lessons from the Practical, Profitable Mindset program, created by R. John Robbins, Alejandra Leibovich, Erika, and Oscar Ferenczi. And here's your host, Erika Ferenczi.
So this week's episode is about change. Change is something that we all say we want until it actually shows up. The thing is, we can't grow without changing. Yet, most of us resist change because change is certainly uncomfortable and many times painful. What today's lesson will teach you is simple, but also powerful. It is not the change that causes suffering. It is your resistance to change which does. The thing is, and the reality is, that change is always happening, whether you like it or you don't like it. The world always moves forward. Relationships evolve, circumstances shift, and when we try to stay the same, we do not stay the same. We fall behind. Growth requires movement, and movement requires letting go of what no longer works. To understand this lesson, I will introduce the cycle of change. I will use a poker game metaphor with 4 stages: shuffle, deal, play the hand, and toss. And the key takeaway is going to be, we are always in a state of change. But the key is we can be at different stages of change in different areas of our life. Crazy, right? I know it gets super complicated. Your career can be on one stage of change, your relationships in another, your finances in another. Change can happen at any time, but it doesn't happen in an orderly way. When you take the time to actually sit down, reflect, and recognize in which stage of change is each area of your life, or at least that one that is causing you grief right now, you will stop resisting and start choosing your next move intentionally. The thing is, change is not the enemy. Change is actually the doorway to growth, renewal, and a fuller life. When you accept that change is always constant, you will stop fearing it and start leading yourself through it. So the question is not whether change is happening or not happening. It is whether you're willing to move with it. So let's listen to this week's episode. We are going to be talking about a concept that I absolutely love, that I think that is present in each and every one of our lives pretty much on a daily basis. And it's present whether we like it or we don't like it. The topic is change. Whether we like it or we don't like it, sometimes we like it, sometimes we don't. Most of the times we resist change. When you think about it, and I'm pretty sure that most of you can relate to this, if I say you can't grow if you don't change, you will all agree with me. Most likely, most of you will agree with me. We know intellectually that unless we change, we won't be able to grow, because as long as we stay the same, we won't grow. And we do want to grow, and we recognize that in order to grow, we must change. We must change who we are, what we know, how we do things, how we operate, the actions we take, and so on and so forth. But the question is, if we know that in order to grow, we must change. And most of you, I would say, hopefully, 99.9% of you want to grow because you want to have more, do more, be more. Why do you think you resist change? Or in which areas of your life do you resist change? Because sometimes we don't resist change in every area of our lives. We usually resist change in the areas that we perceive that the change is going to be painful, right? So the question is it the change that is a problem? Or is the pain that we associate with the change which is a problem? somebody posed here, we resist change because the familiar is safe. And my question would be, is it safe? Is the familiar really safe? I know most of us operate from the assumption or understanding that the familiar is safe. And I'm not saying it's not. I am just asking you to really think when you are thinking about or resisting change, if the familiar indeed is safe. And most likely what you will find is that the familiar is safe or feels safe as long as a bunch of assumptions are also true. So if nothing changes, right? If nothing changes, the familiar is safe. Sometimes that is true, but only if and as long as none of the ancillary circumstances changes. Because when we stay in the familiar and we think it is safe, we're also making a bunch of assumptions surrounding our circumstances that make that familiar safe. And sometimes when we believe that something is safe, is because we are also assuming that nothing around us is going to change. Because the second that is surrounding us changes, then whatever circumstance we're living right now is no longer safe. So, for example, if you are afraid of growing your business faster or making more money because you believe that somebody is going to get angry at you or will be unhappy if you make more money because you're going to be, maybe more empowered, maybe more independent, maybe more this, maybe more that, then it might seem that not making more money would be safe. That not making more money would be safe. But that only would be true if the other areas of your self-security would stay the same. Other areas of income or other people who are providing safety or other relationships that are always there for you, that are kind of your safety net if you don't make more money. If all of those things work, maybe you not making more money is safe. But if any of those safety nets fails, then the circumstance is not safe anymore. Remember that when you don't change and you perceive that not changing is safe, you're making a bunch of assumptions that your environment will stay the same, which it seldomly does, because your environment is always changing. Your relationships are always changing. The entire world is always moving forward. Whether you want to move forward or you don't, the world is moving forward because that is how we all stay alive. We're in a constant state of evolution and in a constant state of change. And that person who tries to stay the same and resists change is a person that stays behind because the world doesn't stop and nothing is ever the same. Change is the opening to possibility. Change is a doorway to growth. Change is a doorway to more life. Change is how we grow, how we expand. And sometimes in order to build, we have to break. We need to break with the old, with the things that no longer work for who you are or you want to be. Those things might have worked for who you were a few years ago, a few months ago, but they are no longer working for who you want to become. So
change is really the doorway to life and the doorway to growth and the doorway to the new and to the renewal. It is in accordance to the cycles of life. Remember that life has cycles, right? We have day and night. We have spring, summer, winter, autumn. We have the tides of the ocean go up and go down. We have months and we have years and we have cycles. And there are some cycles where we need to do away with the old in order to start a new cycle of renewal and build up. And that's what we do when we are going through change. And the most important thing is that whether you like it or not, whether you are aware of it or not, you're always in one piece of the cycle of change. One of the things that I am going to share with you today is something that is called the cycle of change. There's 4 very definite stages that we go through when we are changing. You're always in one of the pieces, one of the 4 stages of change, whether you like it, realize it, or not. So if we start seeing change as the norm, if we start seeing change as what is always happening versus what sometimes happens, it is going to be easier for us to embrace change because we're always changing. So I am going to use the analogy of a poker game in order to talk to you about the cycles and the stages of change. The stages are the shuffle stage, the toss stage, the deal stage, and the play the hand stage. 4 stages of the cycle of change. And I am using the analogy of a poker hand, playing poker or Texas Hold'em or whatever you want to call it, like any card game. And when we realize that we are always changing, that allows us to consciously choose how to navigate the cycle that we're in versus trying to resist it. We should not resist it because whether we like it or not, we're always there. What we need to do is to identify which stage are we in so we can better navigate the stage that we are in, and we can prevent or prepare for the next stage of change. So the first stage, let's go through each one of these 4 phases. The homework is for you to identify in which areas of your life are you in which phase of change. Remember when we talk about the areas of your life, your health, your finances, your professional life, your relationships, friendship, your intimate relationship, parenting, if you are a parent, spirituality. All of those areas, each one of them might be in different stages of change. The first stage is the shuffle stage. The shuffle stage, when you're shuffling the cards, when you're playing the game, is usually when the last game ended, right? In order for you to shuffle the cards is because the last game ended. Whether you won or you lost, that phase came to an end. So you must shuffle the cards if you want to play again. So when you're shuffling the cards, you are detaching from what no longer worked. It's an ending. It's a closure. And it is a time where you normally go into some stage of healing. Let's say that you lost a loved one, or you are going through divorce, or you were let go of a job, or a partnership didn't work out and then you need to go on your own, or that marketing campaign that you were planning didn't pan out, or this thing that you had so much expectations about didn't work. So you realize that that thing did not work. And now you need to go into an inward circumstance where you are going to reflect. It is a time to reflect, to research, to heal, and to think about what your next stages and your next steps are going to be. When you are on the shuffle stage, you are letting go. You're healing from the past. You are bringing closure to whatever worked or didn't work last time. You want to realize that in order to begin anew, something needs to end in some way or shape or form. Now, what it is hard in this stage is that you feel a loss of control. That doesn't mean that you are completely lost, but it feels like you're lost. It feels like you don't know what is going to happen next. And the shuffle stage is an opportunity for a lot of personal growth. It's an opportunity for a lot of personal growth. We usually grow more in the times of difficulty and challenge than on the times when we are just, being who we are and we are not questioning a lot of who we are or what's next. So there's more strength, there's more growth, there's inner renewal, and you start finding and asking yourself, what is next for me? What do I want next? There's a lot of questioning. What do I want? Why did that thing that I thought was going to be phenomenal didn't work out? Or maybe you had a big win and you said, excellent, I am so happy. What about what I did worked really well so I can do it again? So all of that is a shuffle stage. Once you realize and you get some insights into, what's happened in the past, what worked, what didn't work, you healed from whatever happened, you ask yourself, what do I really want, right? Let's imagine that you're thinking about leaving a job that you had and start a business. Let's use that analogy, right? You get to a point in which the job that you had did not work out for you anymore for X or Y reason, because the compensation this or your boss that or the culture the other or the team whatever, and then you're like, what am I supposed to do? What do I want, right? Why does this? Do I go get another job? Do I start my own business? Do I open this new area of practice? For some of you, what do I need to do to get what I want? And once you get your answer, then you get the answer of what game are you going to play? What is the next game that you're going to play? And in that moment, you go to the second stage, which is the deal stage. You take your cards and you start dealing the cards. You start playing a new game or beginning to play with new game. You have the intention of playing a new game. And on the deal stage is all about action. Once we know what we want, then it's all about taking action. What are my next action steps? What do I need to research? What do I need to do? Who do I need to call? Do I need to open an office? Do I need to contact my CEO? Do I need to call my father? Do I need to engage a lawyer? Like, what do I need to do in order to start taking action? In this stage, you will find usually a lot of optimism, because in this stage, people are taking action. You're taking action. There is a lot of optimism. First shuffle, then we are with dealing. you feel like you found a direction. You feel like you know where you're going and what you need to do. It's all a matter of taking action. And you're ready to experiment with the next area of your life. Now, on the shuffle stage, you were going inwards. There was a lot of reflection, right? I was doing a lot of reflection. What do I want? What worked? What didn't work? A lot of reflection. On the deal stage, it's all forward movement. It's all turning outwards and taking action outwards, establishing expectations, excitement, anticipation, high energy, and you might have a little bit of fear of failure or fear of success. But there's a lot of energy, a lot of action, excitement, planning, a lot of doing. You guys like this stage because you're doers. You have a lot of things to do. You have a lot of things, plans to create and business plans to write and contracts to sign and new stages to begin. So that's when you start dealing the cards to be able to play a new game. The next stage is playing the hand. Playing the hand is stage number 3. So you shuffled, you decided what you wanted to play. Let's play Texas Hold'em. You started dealing the cards. Now everybody has their cards. Now we need to play the hand. So when we play the hand, what we are feeling is a lot of excitement, but also a lot of fear of failure and fear of inadequacy. Like, what if I don't have what it takes? What if I can't succeed at this venture? What if this new area of practice doesn't work out? What if this person that I'm hiring is not the right person? I'm excited, but what if it doesn't work? There's fear about the ultimate results that you might or might not get. And eventually, what you do is you relax and you say, you know what? I just need to play the hand. I just need to play the game. Let me just play the game. Let me see what cards did I get. Let me see if I should change these cards or change the other cards. And let's just take my best guess at the next step. When you're playing the game, you are focusing on next steps. You're focusing on solutions. You are breaking resistance. Oh my God, do I toss this card or do I toss the other? Do I keep this card? What are my odds? You need to decide if it's your turn, change cards. So there is a lot of clarifying. And you're taking a lot of actions and you're asking yourself, what do I need to do to make progress? What is that I need to do to move forward? Bottom line, what are my next or best possibilities if I do this or do that? Okay, I need to make a decision. Let me just put down these 3 cards. Please give me 3 new cards. You're playing the game. You're in the game. And that's how you play the game. Step by step, clarifying, bottom line, what is that I need to do? Let me go do this. Let me just take one step at a time. Forward, taking action. And then eventually, that game comes to an end again. And that is what I want you to underline. That stage of the game, comes to an end again. Every single game comes to an end at some point. The game cannot be played forever. And then in that moment, you will know whether you won or lost that particular hand. And then you need to decide if you're going to continue playing or not, which means that you need to toss your cards. You need to put your cards back into the pile of cards, and you need to deal with the result of whatever happened in this last game. if you won the game, there's a lot of excitement and exhilarating, and you feel like you're going to continue to grow. If you lost the game, there might be some sort of feeling of loss, grieving what was not achieved, turning inwards again. There might be a lot of level 1 and level 2 energy. Oh my God, why I can never win? Why do I have such bad luck? This and that and the other. There might be frustration or anger if somebody left you or somebody, ended the relationship before you would do so. And then you're going to start wondering, do I even want to try again? I hired this person. I had all of my, eggs in one basket, and I was so excited about this person. I thought they were going to be superstars. Then I hired them, and within 2 months, I had to fire them. Oh my God, I don't think I can do this again. The tough thing is when you realize that if you lost or won, when you realize that particular game has come to an end. The shuffling comes only when you decide that you're ready to play again. You only start shuffling if you want to play again. So it's like after you lick your wounds because the associate didn't work out or the relationship didn't work out or whatever, and you decide that you know what, it is what it is, but I need another associate, I need another receptionist, I must hire a salesperson. Then you just start, you put up your ads again, you start interviewing again. What worked, what didn't work, and you go into the shuffle stage to do it again. But when you're in the toss stage is when you're realizing what worked and what didn't work. Maybe sometimes for a little moment, you don't really know if you have what it takes to play the game again. Do I really want to play this game again? Oh, I wish I didn't have to do this again. What will happen this next time? Will I find somebody? Will I find a good associate? Will I be able to find a good receptionist? Is there anybody who could help me do this? I feel alone. I feel a little bit of sadness if I didn't win the game. My energy level is a little bit lower because I'm coming to a closure of something that might not have worked out. If it worked out and I'm ready to a new associate, obviously I am going to start that new game with a whole new amount of energy. But if I didn't win, I might feel with low level of energy. And eventually what happens is that you accept, right? If it didn't work out, you just find acceptance, you find understanding, you find belief, and you decide, hopefully, that you know what? I'm going to play this game again. I need to try again. I can't give up. I need to re-engage my belief system. I am going to choose to trust the process. I am going to choose to go into that level 4 or 5 level of leadership, which is maybe there's a possibility. Maybe what is the lesson here for me? What do I need to do in order to move forward? And I stopped spending so much time in lower level energies. I'm not dwelling on what worked or didn't work anymore. I reframe, right? This is a great moment framing. This is, I lost the game. I am never going to be able to find another associate. Nobody cares, etc. That's disempowering language. Then what I decide is, you know what? Maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe that was not the person for me. Maybe there is somebody out there that could be a phenomenal employee for me. Maybe there is an opportunity for me to find an even better opportunity to do things. This is a moment when you find the acceptance about what happened that you start thinking outside of the box. This is the moment to start thinking outside of the box. What do I need to do to grow from this? What can I do to learn from what happened? What could be another way of looking at what just happened so I can be closer to my objectives and not give up on my goals? But that only happens when you accept what has happened. I was talking to a mentor the other day, and he said, pain only lasts until you find acceptance. Pain only lasts until you find acceptance. And suffering only lasts until you understand. If you're suffering for anything, that suffering will only last until you understand what happened or why it happened. And the pain goes away once you accept that what happened is what happened and you move on. So that is the lesson for today. The 4 stages of the cycle of change: the shuffle stage, the deal stage, the play the hand stage, and eventually the toss in stage, because the game comes to an end again. Change is always happening. You're going to realize it or you're not going to realize it, but it's always happening. So if we accept that it's always happening, then you're going to resist it less. And like we said at the beginning, change is a door to growth. Change is a door to more life, to more happiness. It is not necessarily always the door to being comfortable, but it is the door to growth. Okay. I'll take questions and then we're going to be done for today.
I'm a little bit unclear on when the toss moves into shuffle and finding that point, because a lot of the things that you talked about on the toss were reflective, kind of like on the shuffle. Is it the acceptance when I accept that I won or lost? Is that when I move to shuffle?
When you go to shuffle, you've already licked your wounds for whatever happened. Mm-hmm. You accepted that you either won or lost. You decided that possibly this is an opportunity to grow. And you've decided that you're going to engage with life again. Let me just give you the example of, for example, a divorce, right? Let's say that you get to a place where you just come to the decision that you need to get a divorce. That is definitely a toss-in stage, right? You finally make the decision. You need to get a separation, a divorce. I lost, this game. This relationship came to an end. You have pain. You have sadness. You have anxiety. You have a little bit of fear. You have doubt. You go inwards. And finally, at some point, you accept that it ended. And you accept that game is over. So you try to function as much as you can with that game being over. And then at some point, it doesn't have to be that week or that month or that year, it could be several years later, you might decide that you're ready to date again. And you're not going to close down to love anymore. So that's when you start shuffling. Oh, okay, I'm ready to begin being opening to opportunities and possibilities. On the toss game is the ending of whatever happened before. The shuffling is when you're being open to new opportunities. You're being open to a new game, and you start thinking, what kind of game do I want to play? What kind of person would I like to meet? Where would I like to meet them? Well, you create your avatar. You start researching. You're not taking action. You're just researching. You're just sitting with the desire of something new and wondering what your next steps would be. Does that make sense?
I think so. So if the relationship's ending and I haven't faced up to that, I'm still in toss. I haven't accepted that it's ending.
Yes, you're still in toss. You're not playing the hand because you're not married. That marriage, it's not working as it used to work, but you haven't completed the closure stage. You're still not accepted, not ready to move on, whatever emotions you're feeling at that moment. You're just not fully accepted that it's done.
So that stage could last as short or as long as it takes for me to just get a grip on it, right? I mean, I could be years in toss or a day in toss.
Yes.
Okay.
It could be a minute. It could be years. And you know what is interesting is to realize or to reflect about how is it helping you not to accept what is true. Like, what could you be clinging to? Because when we don't accept what happened, sometimes when we don't accept something, we can pretend that it's not true. But it is true. So what the lack of acceptance is protecting us from something. Sometimes might be the pain of the loss. Sometimes might be pain of something else. I don't know. But it's protecting you from something. So the question is, if it already ended, what is the lack of acceptance protecting you from?
Yeah, so I guess when you say you could be you're unconsciously in one of those stages, that could be a good place to be unconscious. Is the acceptance?
Well, I don't know if it's good, but it's certainly a place where it's easy
to be unconscious.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you can be in that place and be conscious. You can become conscious, and you don't have to move out of the phase. I'd rather you being conscious that you're doing it, even if you want to stay in it for a little bit longer, for as long as you need to, but conscious that that's what you're doing.
Okay. Thanks, Erika.
Okay? You're welcome. You're welcome.
As we wrap today's lesson, the biggest takeaway is this. Change is not something that happens occasionally. It is happening all the time. Whether you notice or you don't notice, in every area of your life is constantly evolving. And resisting that reality of change is what creates unnecessary frustration and suffering. One key idea that we explored here is that growth requires change. And even though we intellectually know this, we often resist change because we associate it with pain and loss or fear of the unknown. But staying the same doesn't actually keep us safe because the world continues moving forward, whether you move with it or you don't. It is helpful to be reminded that each one of the stages of the cycle of change that we mentioned has a purpose, and none of them is a mistake. The goal is not to rush through the stages to see how fast can you get to the end. The goal is to recognize which stage are you in so you can respond to it intentionally instead of emotionally. We also discussed that pain lasts until acceptance happens. When we accept reality, whether we feel that we won or we lost, we open the door to new possibilities instead of staying stuck. Today, I want to leave you with this thought. Change is the doorway to growth and to a fuller life. It may not always be comfortable, but it is how we evolve, how we build resilience, and how we create better outcomes. When we stop resisting change and start working with it, we gain more control, we get more confidence, and we get direction in every area of our lives. So for you, what is that you need to accept? What is that you need to stop resisting? And how is that life is knocking on your door, announcing that change is inevitable? If change was happening not to you, but for you, where would you need to grow next? That is what we do here at the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. And now it is your turn to take action. Stay healthy, stay hungry, and stay focused. We will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. We encourage you to take action on it today. Share what you've learned with another entrepreneur. Sign up for our newsletter to get bonus content you won't get anywhere else at exponentialentrepreneur.com and subscribe to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast to receive the next episode. Until next time, keep breaking through limiting beliefs and growing exponentially.